Okay, Facebook Live, first time, so bear with me, I've never done this before. I am going to make you persimmon cookies tonight, and I told you that I would, and I posted the recipe for you, so if you want to see what's in it, and maybe I'm not telling you the exact measurements, so check that out if you want to. I also have all these great little things that I want to talk to you about, like different substitutes for things that you can use instead of regular flour. And these are totally paleo, gluten-free, dairy-free, grain-free, refined sugar-free. What else? Everything bad out. No soy, no dairy, good stuff. I've also got a couple people here watching me today, so they'll be listening and asking questions. So if you hear other people talking, that's what it is. And feel free to ask anything you want to know about with nutrition, or maybe you got your own things that going on and you want to know a substitute, then ask away and I'll try to answer as best as I can. So the first thing that I'm going to do, I'll tell you what's in the cookies. I'm going to make persimmon cookies. If you don't know what a persimmon is, it's this little spicy orange fruit, and you can just eat it just like this. It almost has an apple consistency, but really a little bit softer, and it's kind of spicy naturally on its own, like cinnamony and kind of like a pumpkin pie all in one little piece of fruit. But I'm going to go off of that and make it even more spicy by adding things like cinnamon and nutmeg and cloves, and make these kind of pumpkin pie type cookies that are really, really super soft and moist and yummy and amazing. So the first thing I'm going to do is mash up those persimmons, and if you can see, I've got the Vitamix here, and I'm going to do my persimmons and then mix the butter and the sugar together with the persimmons in the Vitamix, and then combine it all in my big old mixing bowl here. So yeah, ask questions if you have questions, and I'm going to just kind of cook and talk as I go, and that goes for you guys as well. Cool. Okay, persimmon puree. So that's what it looks like. It's kind of like a applesauce type consistency. Nice and spicy, and it's going to add so much moisture to it. And I think that this is really what makes these paleo cookies not taste crappy. I don't know if you've ever tried like a gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, sugar-free cookie and it tastes like not so great. That's not this cookie, and I think maybe it has to do with this persimmon pulp. It just makes everything taste so good. So like I said, I'm going to add the sugar and the butter to this mix so that it purees really good, and then I'll mix everything together. So for this recipe, I actually doubled it because I got a bunch of people here that are going to want to eat cookies, and they taste so good that you can't just have one. You really can't, I promise, and maybe give you a little tummy ache. But okay, so I doubled the recipe. So what it typically calls for is 4 persimmons and a half a cup of coconut sugar. I'm going to use a whole cup of coconut sugar because I doubled it. And also this recipe, like I said, dairy-free, paleo, you can use ghee. I'm using Kerrygold butter. I love this grass-fed butter. If you notice the color of this butter, it's like gold. And it's not like your typical, white. I feel like butter that's from the grocery store is just like white almost. This is grass-fed, all good stuff, high quality milk from cows that are raised the way they're supposed to be. So it's beautiful. It has a totally different taste and texture than just regular butter. So I think it's worth the added price. If you want it to be strictly dairy-free, if you have a dairy allergy, go ahead and use ghee. Ghee is clarified butter, so it's butter that's been cooked down for a long period of time, and it actually cooks so long that it cooks the casein out of the butter. So if you have dairy allergies or any problems with dairy, if you use ghee, you won't have any of those negative side effects, anything that comes up from a dairy allergy. I have celiac disease, so I can't have any dairy, but this grass-fed butter has never negatively affected me. So I'm super grateful to Kerrygold for giving me a butter that I can enjoy on a very regular basis. So persimmon pulp, coconut sugar, and then your Kerrygold butter. or ghee if you were making it dairy free. Okay, so that's good. I'm gonna go ahead and mix together my dry ingredients now and put those all in a bowl, and then I'll pour that pulp into this bowl just as soon as this is all mixed. So this is 3 cups of cassava flour. So cassava flour is actually a 1-for-1 mix for regular flour. So if you were just switching out, I don't want to have any wheat flour, maybe you have an allergy to wheat, maybe you're just trying to cut it back for a little bit, cassava flour actually goes 1-for-1. So if you have a recipe that you love, chocolate chip cookies for the holidays, sugar cookies, you can switch out a cup for white flour for a cup for cassava flour. Cassava flour is actually made from the root of a tapioca. So tapioca, the top part, the root is the cassava. So it's actually a plant. You're getting fiber, you're getting the protein. It actually has dietary fiber. It has less sugar than anything else, and it's actually going to break down in your body a lot slower than regular white flour. You're not going to get that high blood sugar hit from a cookie that you would from like a normal cookie. So really great mix. A little bit more expensive than white flour, but you get what you pay for. Okay, so I'm mixing that with my tablespoon of cloves, a tablespoon of cinnamon, a teaspoon of cinnamon, and a teaspoon of nutmeg. Also coming in is a teaspoon, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and 1 teaspoon of baking flour. And if you notice, I got the Red Mill, and this one is aluminum-free baking powder. So our baking soda and our baking powder typically have aluminum in them. So you actually have to buy brands that say aluminum-free. And I was looking at the grocery store today just to see what was in baking soda that it would need to say aluminum-free. And this one only has, the only ingredient in it is bisodium carbonate. So it kind of doesn't make any sense that we'd need to have all these other things in our baking soda and baking powder if that's the only ingredient that's necessary. And this bag here, which is about the same size as those little boxes that you'd get, was $1.99. So almost no price difference. You know, maybe $1 more, but it's going to last you more, and you're not putting that aluminum in your body, so you're not clogging the lymphatic system. Aluminum can cross the blood-brain barrier, it gets stuck there, it gets stored in your fat cells. So this is a really good, easy switch. If you're not going to change anything else, just cut the metals out of your diet. So aluminum-free baking soda, aluminum-free baking powder. And then the spices that I used were just organic, you know, as fair trade as you can get, non-GMO, as best quality, as highest quality as you can get, because these are so good and spicy, and you want that good spice from somewhere that came from a good place and feel good about eating it too. And then lastly, the coconut sugar was just all the brands of coconut sugar that I find are about the same. I just try to get the organic one.
What's the advantage of coconut sugar? There's
Good.
so many sugar substitutes.
Good question. So what's the advantage of coconut sugar over a regular sugar? It's just a lower burn rate. So what happens with our body, every sugar, every single food that we eat has to get broken down into glucose. That's the only thing our body can use. So we use glucose, everything that we eat, protein, fat, carbohydrates, all of it turns into glucose. The only difference is how long does it take for your body to break it down. The longer it takes your body to break down, the healthier it's going to be for you, because you want that sustainable long-term energy, and you don't want your body having to fight back against anything. So the white sugar that we buy is actually a very, very heavily processed ingredient that comes from a sugar cane and somehow goes from this beautiful green plant all the way down to this white powder substitute. So where did it come from, and how did we get there, and what did it lose in the meantime? The coconut palm sugar is cooked down, and then it's the crystals that are left over. So really the difference is that it just burns a little bit slower in your body, so it's just a little bit healthier an option. It also comes from a plant, and it has a little bit less processing than the white sugar does. What else? You guys got other questions? I'm not wearing my glasses, so I told you I'd answer your questions, but I can't see them, so I'll have to look back through as I have a chance here. Okay, so I also have 2 eggs here, so I'm going to put those eggs in. I wanted to mention I get my eggs from a local farm here in town, but when I don't have those eggs or when I can't get to those eggs, I buy these pasture raised by Vital Farms. And I've actually read that they do still have soy in the eggs. They do still have a soy-based diet, but they do have the ability to pasture raise. So I feel like it's a better option if you can't get the farm-raised, pasture-raised eggs, that you know exactly what they're eating. So these eggs were ones that I had to get because I ran out of eggs before my shipment came in. So that's what I'm using today. But if you notice, maybe you can't see this, but even the yolks from these eggs are bright orange. They're not like that, light milky yellow. This is a bright orange, like our bright orange butter that we were using before. So color means something. That brightness, that's vibrancy, that's healthy, that's a really good sign. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and mix my pulp in now. Maybe pulp isn't the right word. Is pulp not a great word? Okay, so I've got my puree. I feel like that's a better word, puree. Okay, I'm going to mix that in here. And what we'll see is a nice, thick dough. The one thing about these cookies that I had to learn the hard way, actually, the first time I made them, this isn't my recipe. This is someone else's recipe. You can see the author of the recipe online. I posted a link to her blog. Really, really great stuff. I am not a baker. I don't typically like to bake. I don't like measuring things. I love cooking. That's about as far as I get in the kitchen. But this recipe just seemed so foolproof and so easy to me that I had to do it. And I am so grateful that I did. But these cookies do not spread out at all. So if you put them on a baking sheet and expect them to spread out, they're not going to. So what I've learned to do, this is now like the 10th time I've made these cookies, is to push them down myself. And by pushing them down, you get that nice size that you like without having to worry about them cooking too long, because they're not going to spread out themselves. They don't really move much at all. So you can put them as close together on the baking sheet as you possibly want. They're not going to change shape very much. They're going to stay pretty good. But even with that said, they still are really fluffy. So I don't know, riddle me this. Okay, so if you can see, I've got this really beautiful dough, really nice and soft, kind of velvety. There's no, it's not like your typical cookie dough. You're not going to be able to roll this out or make any shapes with it. It's like a nice drop batter. And I'll show you in a second. I like to use 2 spoons to kind of make my shape so that I don't get my hands all dirty. So we're almost mixed up here. Anybody have any more questions while I'm mixing?
For the persimmon, does it need to be a little soft?
Good question. I have done it with both. I've done it with super, super ripe persimmons and persimmons that are a little bit hard still. And it doesn't seem to change the flavor or the consistency whether or not you have them soft or not. What does seem to change is the spice level, believe it or not. You get a little bit spicier of a cookie the riper the persimmons are. So that's kind of interesting, I feel like. But as far as having to wait until they get too soft, they do kind of ferment a little bit in their own skin. They have that nice thick skin on the outside, and they tend to get a little fermented. So watch for that. Take a smell and make sure it's not like you're making booze cookies, unless that's what you want to do, and then by all means go for it. But because they've got that nice skin, they tend to kind of ferment within themselves. So watch for that. You don't want them to be too ripe. Okay, so if you see now, it's all nice and done. It almost kind of looks like a pumpkin frosting. Yeah, so it's nice and thick. It's not going to change or move. So you're going to want to make the cookies the exact size that you think that you want them to be, and put them in the, as close together as you want on the cooking sheet. I just put a little bit of palm shortening, cooking grease, on the pan so that they don't stick. I've done it without greasing the pan, and it doesn't seem to make a difference. I just have a safety precaution of greasing it just in case it does decide to stick one day, and then I ruin all my cookies, and I'd be crying because these are so yummy. Okay, so I've got 2 spoons here. One is covered in butter, but hey, that's probably even better. And then I just take a spoonful and then I just drop them on the sheet like that. So they're pretty easy to drop on the sheet. And then these are going to go in the oven at 375 for about 15 minutes. They don't take too long, and I like to pull them out when they're still a little bit soft and let them finish cooking outside the oven. They're still going to cook a little bit while they're, even when they're out of the oven, because they're still going to be hot. So if you let them go until they're fully cooked in the oven, you're going to get a dry cookie. So another thing I had to learn the hard way again, I'm not a baker by trade. I love to cook. Put me in the kitchen with a stir fry any day of the week, but measuring spoons and baking soda, not the best. Okay, so I'm going to keep dropping these on, and then I'm going to bake them. And I'm not going to make you sit for 15 minutes while these bake. I'm going to post a picture for you later this evening to show you what they look like finished. Maybe a couple of smiling faces and a review or two. I promise you these are so, like, just the perfect holiday cookie. They're made with fruit. You don't have to feel guilty about eating them. They've got all kinds of good stuff in them, good spices. Those spices that we put in, they're all anti-inflammatory, so you're going to get all that good benefit of not eating anything bad for you, plus getting that added bonus of getting maybe a little serving of fruit. Maybe feel good about giving them to your kids. Although my kids won't try them because they're orange and don't have chocolate chips. So if that's your reality, maybe add a couple chocolate chips. I don't know. Add chocolate chips, absolutely. And you'll see or raisins, right? Absolutely. Raisins or chocolate chips I think would be excellent. An excellent addition to this. But like I said, I'm not exactly one to like mess around with what the recipe says. I'll just do it. That way I don't mess it up. Okay, so these are almost done. I'm going to look through these questions real quick, and then I'll pop these guys in the oven and send you a picture of it. So let me see what anybody said here.
They say you look beautiful.
Oh, well, thanks. All right, cool. So no questions so far. So what I'm going to do now is put these in the oven, share this video, like the video, comment as much as you want. I'll answer questions throughout the night. This is what your finished tray is going to look like. I'm going to pop these in the oven for about 15 minutes, and then we will have some cookies to eat. So thank you so much for joining us, and I will see you later.